Hello everyone, this is Finance 101. We are module number 2, and in this video I'm going to be showing you a live application of Excel. So as you can see here, I have an example for my class Finance 331, which is one of the finance classes that I teach, and I have the different grade components, the weights for each of those grade components, and the students' grades. So this example is going to be really useful when you're trying to calculate your grade in any class at the end of the semester. Sometimes classes are just equally weighted averages where every grade component will have the same weight. So for example, you have 5 exams and each one is worth 20%. In that case, to calculate the average, you would just add them up and divide by 5, right? The number of grades. But in many classes, you will have to calculate a value weighted average, which is the example that we have here. That means that every grade component will have a different weight or a different percentage towards that final grade. So let's take a look at this example. In this class, I give 2 exams, exam 1 and 2. Each of them are worth 25%. So that's why we have a weight of 0.25. Then the homework component is 20% or 0.2. And then there's a final exam that is equal to 0.3 of your final grade. Right, on column C here, I have the grades that the student had received. So an 80 in exam 1, a 57 in exam 2, homework 65, and then in the final, a score of 45. I'm going to reduce that decimal place there so we see it as the whole number. All right, so we got to calculate the grade, right? So how do we do this? There are several options. So I'm going to show you the first way of doing this. I'm going to do it in not a very efficient way, which I know this is how a lot of people do this type of calculation in Excel, but I'm going to show you why it's so inefficient to do it in this way. All right, so I press the equal sign to enter my formula. Open parentheses, and I will type 0.25, right? So 25% times the exam 1 grade, 80. Close parentheses, plus open parentheses, 0.25 times 57 is the score in exam 2. Plus open parentheses, 0.2 times in the homework, the student made a 65, plus the last one, 0.3 times the score in the final exam. All right, so close parentheses, I'm going to press enter, and this is going to give me the weighted average, right? You can increase the number of decimals to see with more details. So it's 60.75, right? If I decrease the number of decimals, would be rounding that grade to a 61. So the student would receive a D in this class. So this, was an easy way to calculate it, but basically I use Excel here as a calculator. I could have easily done this with a calculator. One problem with doing it like this is that if we have to make any changes to these grades, then I would have to retype that entire formula. My result that I see over there, 61, is not going to automatically change. All right, so that's why I'm going to show you now a more efficient way to calculate this same grade. I'm going to delete that. This time, I'm going to use what we call cell references, right? So instead of typing these values, both the weights and the grades for each component, I'm actually going to refer to the cells where I have entered those values already. This will make it a dynamic sheet, so whenever I change one of those values, the weights or the grades, my answer will automatically change. Also, by setting up my spreadsheet in this way, I could use it to calculate my grade in different classes. Maybe I'll need to make some small modifications to my model, but I could reuse it for different classes or to calculate it for another student, for a friend. All right, so let's go ahead and start with our formula again. I'm going to press the equal sign, open parentheses. I could type the name of the cells, but even easier, we can just click on them. So I'm going to click on cell B3, which is where I have the 25%, times, so press the times symbol, cell C3, because that's where I have my score of 80. Close parentheses, plus open parentheses. Cell B4, that's where we have the next 25%, times cell C4, close parentheses, plus open parentheses, cell B5 times C5, close parentheses, plus open parentheses, and then the final exam, cell B6 times C6. All right, oops, I put that in the wrong place there, times C6. There we go. All right, so I can press enter, and there we have the same score, 61. So look at what happens now. What if I I realized that, oh, instead of making an 80 in exam 1, I actually made an 85. Or maybe there was a question that I had with my professor. I submitted my dispute. The professor realized that there was a mistake in the grading, and I actually had an 85. So change it to 85, see what happens to the answer 61. It automatically changes, right? All right, so I'm gonna undo, so we go back to the original grades. So this is another way in which you can calculate the score. I'm gonna show you one more way in which you can do this. And this would actually be easier, it'll be less time consuming. I'm going to calculate each of those sums that I had in parentheses separately, and then we're just gonna add them up in our final cell where we have our answer. And the reason I wanna do this is because this will avoid me having to type each of those parentheses and plus signs. Excel doesn't really know the order of operations necessarily, so we need to tell Excel what we want to do first, what operations we want to do first. So I'm going to press equal, click on cell B3 times C3. So I'm multiplying the weight times the grade, press enter, and then I'm just going to double click on that bottom right corner that's called the fill handle, which will allow me to copy that formula down to cell D6, right? So I've done that same operation, weight times score, for each of those grade components. So basically what I did is I computed those 4 parentheses separately. Now I have to put the plus signs in between, right? That means I have to add them up. So in order to do that, I'm gonna press the equal sign, type sum, open parentheses. I'm going to grab that whole matrix, so those 4 cells, close parentheses, and then there we go. We have the same result, right? 61. All right, so that's great. You now know how to calculate a weighted average grade, and you can apply this to most of your classes in your degree. Now, I'm going to show you one more thing. Guess what is the #1 question that I get from my students at the end of every single semester? Any guesses? I bet some of you guessed right. Dr. Liebenberg, what grade do I need in the final exam to pass this class? Or what grade do I need in this project to make final A or a B, or I need a C to graduate? What grade do I need? That is the most common question that I get. Now, my students are finance students, and my finance classes are math intense. And one of the things that we cover in the class is how to calculate weighted average portfolio. So when I get a question like that from a student, it makes me think that they're probably not doing very well in the class, because they should know how to calculate a weighted average. Now, a lot of you are not finance majors. Some of you are not even business majors. However, you are in college and you are expected to be able to calculate your own grades and what grades you need, right? So instead of emailing your professor, I can guarantee you it's not going to look very good if you send that email. Instead, learn how to do it yourself. And this skill will be so useful, because you're going to be wanting to do this for every class, right? All right, so let me show you how to do that. So I'm going to delete that score of, let's go ahead and delete that score of 45 in the final exam. We don't know what we have in the final. We haven't taken that exam yet. So I want to know how much I need in order to get a certain grade, right? So let's go ahead and say that we want a grade of, say, 60, right? All right, so one way would, of course, be just let's type in grades here and see. Before we had a 45 here, and that was giving me a 60. Let's say that I want a C, right? It's a score of 70. So let's increase that. What if I make a 60? Still not enough. What if I make a 70? Almost there. What if I make a 75? All right, there we go. I have my C. So you could experiment like that, right, with your model now, because you've created an Excel model. So you can play with different numbers until you get the desired answer. Of course, there's a much more efficient way to do that, right? That's what we're learning in Excel. There are a couple of different ways. One would be to use a reverse equation. Think about the equation that you used to calculate that grade. And now we're going to calculate that part of the formula that gives you the last component that you need, which is the weight of 30% times the grade that you make in the final, right? So in order to do that, look what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and say, I'm going to delete this grade right here. And I'm going to say equals, I'm going to open parentheses. Oh, hold on. I'm going to put first here a grade of, say, 70. All right, so I'm going to press the equal sign, open parentheses. So I'm going to say I need a grade of 70, right? That's what I need. I'm going to type it in, minus what I have so far. So I'm going to click on that 47. That's the sum of the other 3 grade components, exam 1, 2, and the homework, right? I'm going to close that parentheses. And usually this grade would typically be multiplied by 0.3. But because I'm doing the reverse process, I have to divide it by 0.3. Right? So that's my formula. 70, what I need, minus the accumulated weighted average of what I already have. Take that difference and divide it by that percentage that I have pending, which is the 30%. All right, so that gives me a 76. That's the exact grade that I need, a 76 to make a 70 in the exam. All right, I'm gonna show you how to do this in one more way. This next function, it's a little bit more advanced. It's called goal seek, and we're going to talk about it in our next module, in module 3. But I think most of you are ready to get introduced to this really cool function. It's something that I love and I use it all the time. So this is just one of the many applications that you can use goal seek function to solve. Let's go ahead and take a look at how we do this. All right, so I'm gonna delete this score. We're going to delete the final exam because that is the grade that we're looking for. And I'm going to say data. I'm going to go the data tab across the top. And we want to go to what if analysis. Click on that drop down menu. And then the second one down there is goal seek. All right, so look what this dialog box is asking me. It says set cell. So that is a set. That is a cell that I want to set to a certain value, right? So I want to set my weighted average, my final grade. So I'm going to click on cell C7. That's where I have my final average. And keep in mind that you have to have a formula in there so that your model is all set up. I want to set that final grade to a value of, say, 70, because I want to see. By changing cell, which cell do we want to change? This one where the final exam is, right? So cell C6. All right, so I'm going to press OK, and I want you to pay attention to what happens to our spreadsheet. You see how the numbers kept changing? Excel is looking for that value that makes this statement true. So what grade do we need to put in that final exam cell so that the final grade is a 70? Right? Press OK, and that is my solution, a 76, which is exactly what I got when I did it with a formula, right? But the formula might be a lot harder to understand for those of you who perhaps do not have a math background. This is just a lot easier. Excel does it for you. And of course, you can repeat it with different grades. What if I don't want to see it? Maybe I want a B. Let's do it again. What if analysis, goal seek. So I want to set my cell, my final grade. This time I want it B, so I need an 80 by changing the cell C6. That's where my final exam is. Let's see Excel do the work again, right? All right, ooh, it looks like it may not be possible for me to get a B, right? Because I need a 109 in the final exam. So I guess this professor is allowing grades over than 100. I see that grade B, it's out of reach for this particular class. All right, so this will allow you to play with the different grade components. Of course, you can do this for any of the components. Maybe you have a final project pending or your homework has not been completed yet. So this will allow you to figure it out, what you need in order to pass the class or to get the grade that you need. I hope that you enjoy this video and just feel free to send me comments about it. And if you have any questions, I'm always here to help you. Bye, see you in the next video.